we con our sorrow and and always it shall remain the story of Hussein. Our poets they write to us, our reciters they tell us, and always it shall remain the story of Hussein. Our poets they write to us, our reciters they tell us. Why do we cry for this tale year after year? Why does grief for Hussein refuse to leave ever? Why do the hearts ache when his name is mentioned? That we wake on our sorrow and sleep on our tears. This a present from our Lord, and to Hussein we were called, and this call was made to us, our reciters they tell us, and always it shall remain the story of Hussein. Our poets they write to us, our reciters they tell us. The poet writes with his sorrow as his pen, writing what happened on that day of the 10th. His ink is his tears which to Hussein he has led, painting a picture of Hussein and his woman.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق والمرسلين سيدنا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. The Messenger of Allah Azza wa Jal has been reported by Imam Sadiq alayhi salam as saying, I am the first person who is present before God Almighty, then the book and my household, and then my nation. I shall ask them what they have done to the book of God and my household. Please help me welcome Brother Qasim with a loud salawat. أفلح من عاد ثانية. ثالثة بأعلى الأصوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لقد كان لكم في رسول الله أسوة حسنة لقد كان لكم في رسول الله أسوة حسنة لمن كان يرجو الله واليوم الآخر وذكر الله كثيرا. ولما رأى المؤمنون الأحزاب قالوا هذا ما وعدنا الله ورسوله هذا ما وعدنا الله ورسوله وصدق الله ورسوله وما زادهم إلا إيمانا وتسليما. من المؤمنين رجال صدقوا ما عاهدوا الله عليه فمنهم من قضى نحبه ومنهم من ينتظر وما بدلوا تبديلا ليجزي الله الصادقين بصدقهم ويعذب المنافقين إن شاء. من المؤمنين رجال صدقوا ما عاهدوا الله عليه فمنهم من قضى نحبه ومنهم من ينتظر وما بدلوا تبديلا ليجزي الله الصادقين بصدقهم ويعذب المنافقين إن شاء أو يتوب عليهم إن الله كان غفورا رحيما. ورد الله الذين كفروا بغيظهم لم ينالوا خيرا وكفى الله المؤمنين القتال وكان الله قويا عزيزا. وأنزل الذين ظاهروهم من أهل الكتاب من صياصيهم وقذف في قلوبهم الرعب فريقا تقتلون وتأسرون فريقا وأورثكم أرضهم وديارهم وأموالهم وأرضا لم تطئوها وكان الله على كل شيء قديرا. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. الحمد لله. الحمد لله رب العالمين. زيارة وارث. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أزور سيدي ومولاي ومعتمدي ورجائي، ذخري وذخيرتي في آخرتي ودنياي، الإمام الحسين سلام الله عليه، زيارة عني ونيابة عن والدي ووالدي وعن إخواني وأخواتي وعن المؤمنين والمؤمنات، قربة إلى الله تعالى. السلام عليك يا وارث آدم صفوة الله، السلام عليك يا وارث نوح نبي الله، السلام عليك يا وارث إبراهيم خليل الله، السلام عليك يا وارث موسى كليم الله، السلام عليك يا وارث عيسى روح الله، السلام عليك يا وارث محمد حبيب الله، السلام عليك يا وارث أمير المؤمنين ولي الله، السلام عليك يا ابن محمد المصطفى، السلام عليك يا ابن علي المرتضى، السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء، السلام عليك يا ابن خديجة الكبرى، السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والوتر الموتور، أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر وأطعت الله ورسوله حتى أتاك اليقين، فلعن الله أمة قتلت ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، أشهد أنك كنت نورا في الأصلاب الشامخة والأرحام المطهرة، لم تنجسك الجاهلية بأنجاسها
ولم تلبسك من مدلهمات ثيابها، وأشهد أنك من دعائم الدين وأركان المؤمنين، وأشهد أنك الإمام البر التقي الرضي الزكي الهادي المهدي، وأشهد أن الأئمة من ولدك كلمة التقوى وأعلام الهدى والعروة الوثقى والحجة على أهل الدنيا، وأشهد الله وملائكته ورسله وأنبياءه ورسله أني بكم مؤمن وبإيابكم موقن بشرائع ديني وخواتيم عملي، وقلبي لقلبكم سلم وأمري لأمركم متبع. صلوات الله عليكم وعلى أرواحكم وعلى أجسادكم وعلى أجسامكم وعلى شاهدكم وعلى غائبكم وعلى ظاهركم وعلى باطنكم. السلام عليكم يا أولياء الله وأحبائه. السلام عليكم يا أصفياء الله وأوداءه. السلام عليكم يا أنصار دين الله. السلام عليكم يا أنصار رسول الله. السلام عليكم يا أنصار أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليكم يا أنصار فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي محمد الحسن بن علي الولي الناصح. السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي عبد الله الحسين بأبي أنتم وأمي طبتم وطابت الأرض التي فيها دفنتم وفزتم فوزا عظيما. فيا ليتنا كنا معكم فنفوز فوزا عظيما.
أفلح من أعادها ثانية.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
It is narrated from Imam Ali Masjid alayhi salam that he said, On the night preceding Imam Hussein's martyrdom, my father gathered his family and companions and said, O people of my family and Shi'as and my Shi'a, consider this night which has come to you as a mounting camel and save yourselves. For these people do not desire anyone else except me. Then if they kill me, they shall not pursue you. May Allah have mercy upon you. Save yourselves. I lift the responsibility of the allegiance and pledge which you have taken at my hands. Hearing this, his brothers, relatives, and companions said, By Allah, O our master, O Aba Abdullah, we shall never betray you. We shall never betray you so that people may say that we had abandoned our Imam, our chief and master, until he was martyred. Then we would seek excuses between ourselves and Allah, and we shall not leave you until we ransom ourselves upon you. And we also say, O Imam, inshallah, we will never leave you, and we will continue to commemorate your memory till the end of our lives. Please help me welcome our dear Shaykh with a loud salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين خالق السماوات والأرض إلها واحدا أحدا صمدا لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين رحمة للعالمين طه وياسين بالقاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين ورحمة الله على محبيهم ولعنة الله على أعدائهم وقاتليهم وغاصب حقوق حقهم ومنكر فضائلهم أجمعين من يومنا هذا إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم إن الحسين مصباح الهدى وسفينة النجاة. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمصابنا بالحسين عليه السلام. I take this opportunity to convey our condolences to Imam Sahib al-Amr, to the Mu'mineen around the world, to all of you, all those who are online or in person, to the household of the Prophet, as we mark these days of the martyrdom of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, his companions and his family members. My sisters, my brothers, my elders, my youngsters, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yesterday we were discussing how Islam is a religion first and foremost of the rejection of falsehoods. We talked about how the kalama itself begins with La ilaha illallah. La ilaha, the La is at the very beginning. That becomes the foundation of Islam, that rejection of batil. So before we accept the truth, we have to reject the falsehood. And the whole essence of falsehood is Shaytan, is Iblis. And so when we reject falsehood, we are rejecting these insinuations of Shaytan. We are rejecting these whisperings of Shaytan, these waswasa, these doubts, these things that come into our minds, into our heads, into our communities, into our lives, into our families. We're rejecting that. Anything that is falsehood, anything that takes us away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by saying La ilaha illallah, we reject that and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to come to us. This is the foundation, this is the beginning part. So rejecting the false gods is where the beginning of Islam is. This is where Islam starts. And when you have heard me a couple of times, and actually 2 different lectures I have mentioned, that we take lessons, we need to take lessons from Iblis and what he does and how he works at it. And if you recall our discussions whereby we had said that we need to take the tools of Shaitan and use them against Shaitan. Whether it's the internet, whether it's the television, whether it is cable, whether it is satellite channels, whether it is our cell phones, whether it is our messaging, whether it is our Facebook and all that. I've had some people who will not go into Facebook, they refer to it as fitna book. And fasad book, and it's a destruction. And while it can be, it's the same example as having a knife in your hand. You can use that knife to stab somebody, or you can use that knife to cut your fish and your chicken and your steak. The decision is yours. The television inherently is not evil, but if you use it for evil, then it becomes bad. The computers, the internet, all these things that we have, then inherently they're not evil. But Shaitan tries his best, and he does work. And this is why I said that now, when I mentioned this, that what examples or what lessons we need to take from him. If you are in a sports competition, if you like to play tennis, if you like to play badminton, if you like to play any sports, what is one of the first things that your coach will tell you to do? Look at your opponent, assess your opponent, and see where his weaknesses or her weaknesses are, and you use that to your advantage. So if you're playing tennis and you know that your opponent has a weak backhand, you will lobby all the balls to his or her backhand. If you know that their forehand is weak, you will put it in the forehand. If you know that they cannot run from one corner to the other, then this is what you do, you make them do that. So the same way we see how Shaitan works, and we use that against him. I'll tell you one thing about Shaitan. He is very patient. And you look at me and he says, why are you talking positive about Shaitan? I'm not talking positive about Shaitan. There was this one Shaikh, he was going with a young boy, and they were just talking, and the Shaikh asks the young boy, aren't you afraid of Shaitan? So the little boy, innocent, mashallah, masoom children, he replies, he said that I think you should be more afraid of Shaitan because you're speaking bad about him all the time. So this is, what is Shaitan? He's very patient. When he wants to misguide you, it's not like us, you and I, we'll try once or twice or 3 times and say, okay, this is a lost case. No, he keeps trying over and over and on and on and over and over and on and on until he is successful. And hopefully, inshallah, jazakallah khair, he will not, inshallah, be successful. But if you look at the story of Hazrat Nabi Allah Nuh alayhi salam, at the time of the flood happened, the big storm happened, everything took place, and basically, jazakallah khair, afwan. Everything happened. After that, everybody was mu'min, right? When the ark went on, and everybody said, even the son of Prophet Nuh, Allahu Akbar, even his own son, his own flesh and blood, he rejected his father, he rejected Prophet Nuh alayhi salam, and he went on and he went away. But I'm going to come to this in a different lecture, but I wanted to come and mention one thing there. After the storm had settled down, after everything had dried up, they went out. All of those were believers. All 72 who were with Nabi Allah Nuh alayhi salam, they were all believers. So how did shirk happen again? Is it a question that you've thought about perhaps? Yes, no? Jazakallah in the nafs Allah amaratan lis-su'. Yeah, so what happened? Everybody was mu'min, everybody was happy, everybody was believer, everybody was on the right path, everybody was following Hazrat Nabi Allah Nuh. And so it seems like Shaitan would have not succeeded in anything, because now Allah Ta'ala had basically cleared out the world of the kuffar, of the mushrikeen, of the idol worshippers, the idolaters, the polytheists, everybody was out. So what happened after that? Well, what was the essence of, to put it in a nutshell, is that Shaitan saw that, okay, right now everybody is clear, everybody is clean, everybody is tahir, everybody is Muslim according to what Hazrat Nuh's time was. So he didn't do anything immediately. Of course, he would try his little tricks. But after the demise of Nabi Allah Nuh alayhi salam, Allahu Akbar, Prophet Nuh was how old when he left this dunya? 1,000? 950? Sorry? Actually, it was, I don't know if somebody said it there, 950 years after the but his actual full age was 2,500 years old. And you know when Malakul Maut, the angel of death, was about to come to him, and he says, it's time to go. You know what Prophet Nuh says? It feels like I've just entered through one door and I'm leaving through another door. At the age of 2,500, imagine us, if we make it to 60, 70, 80, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. 2,500 years later, he's saying, I feel like I've just come through one door and I've gone through the other. Those of you, none of you, alhamdulillah, but those who reach my age, you look back at your life and say, la ilaha illallah, it's gone back so fast. What have we achieved? I have done nothing. All these years have passed, all these decades have passed. Now I'm on the last, part of the roller coaster that's called life. And what have we achieved? Imagine Nabi Allah Nuh, who did his whole life in tabligh. So it is a lesson for us, that life and death are really just, two doors that everybody has to come in and go out from. One time, and I'll just share this with you because it's slightly away from what I was going to say today, but I think I have a little bit of your attention. And as you're growing, you'll appreciate these things. One of the prophets, if I'm recalling correctly, it was Nabi Allah Shu'aib alayhi salam, peace be upon him. He has this conversation with Malakul Maut, with the angel of death. He says, before you take me, can you just, let me know before you're coming? Just give me a little bit of a heads up, give me a warning. So the angel says, yeah. And many years pass by, decades have gone by. All of a sudden, he sees the angel of death. Okay, it's time to go. So the Nabi, the Prophet, Shu'aib alayhi salam, he says, wait. We had a conversation, we had an agreement, right? And what happened? You didn't tell me. You didn't give me a heads up. You didn't give me a warning. He says, yes, I did. Nabi says, no, you didn't. Now there was this little tussle conversation. And it's not like, I sent you the email. What happened? I sent you the text message. I sent you the WhatsApp. I sent you the Telegram. I sent you the Instagram. No, it was not like this. Angels don't work on that wavelength, right? So the angel is saying, I sent you the messages. Nabi is saying, no. The angel then clarifies, he says, didn't you notice I sent the gray hairs your way, I sent the back going over, I sent the wrinkles, I sent you all these signs that get ready, anytime can be times up. One salawat upon Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. So those who are lucky will get the signs, but remember, the angel of death does not have the prerogative, or he doesn't have instructions that only take those who are over 60 or over 70 or over 80. There's nothing like that. And I often, those who have visited my cemetery, our community cemetery in my city of Kitchener, will know that we have, if you look at the decades, every decade, in our cemetery, in our Qabristan, we have got every sort of age group, every decade, from a 3-day-old baby to a 6-month to a 10-year-old child, to a 12-year-old child, to a 22-year-old, to a 30-year-old, to a 40-year-old, to a 50-year-old. And our highest is an elderly lady who we used to treat like a grandmother, who was 104 years old. And so Malakul Maut doesn't look at who's old, who's young. His job is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at any time. So our responsibility is to try and stay ready at any time and every time. One salawat upon Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. So without digressing much further, in the time of Prophet Noah, everybody was mu'min. Shaytan wasn't able to do much tabligh work there. His dawah was he had a little bit of a vacation, you can say. Maybe he had COVID in his time, I don't know, Allahu Alam. And so he had a little bit of time. And then now, the next generation, after Nabi Allah Nuh stays for 2,500 years, he leaves this world, he goes away. Now the children who are still mu'min, the grandchildren are still mu'min, eventually he goes to them in a very nice form. He goes to them like a friend. And he goes to them as, like a guy who is going to be seeing eye to eye with them. This is why Imam Khomeini Allah Maqam has mentioned on not only on one or two occasions, on numerous occasions, and our Maraj and our ulama have warned us, that be careful of those who claim to be your friends. Because the most dangerous person for you is the wolf that comes to you in a sheep's clothing. Oh, he'll compliment you, and he'll flatter you, and he'll speak so nicely to you. And sometimes these are the most dangerous people, more than your direct enemy. Your enemy, this is your enemy. But it's the one who pretends to be your friend that we have to be most cautious of. Whether it is in our individual lives, whether it is in our religious lives, whether it is in our world political lives. This is an important thing to remember, that, don't trust everybody. At the same time, don't distrust everybody. There has to be a balance maintained, but at the same time, keep this in mind. So the next, he comes to the people in a very nice, handsome form. You know, when I go to the schools, when I go to the public schools, and whether it's a Catholic school, whether it's a high school or college or university, we always, you know, the topic of Satan comes up, Shaytan, the most evil, the most vile. And I ask the students, I sometimes get a chance to ask the students, I say, when you close your eyes and somebody tells you to picture Shaytan, what do you picture? You've read comics, you've seen the, you know, the portrayal in the media. What do you see Satan as? The horns, ugly, fire coming out of his nostrils and his, you know, everything, and he's got that pitchfork and everything. Very scary image of Satan, right? Shaitan. So I look at them and I smile and I say, you know, in Islam, this is not the image of Shaitan. Because if you see somebody ugly, fiery, with, you know, this evil all around him and, you know, horns and all that, no one's going to go near to him. Shaitan comes to us in a very beautiful form. He might come in the form of a ghayr mahram. He might come to you in the form of a friend. He'll come in a beautiful way so that you'll be attracted to him, not that you'll be repelled by him. This is where we have to be extra cautious, sisters and brothers. Shaitan will come to us in a beautiful form, not in an ugly form. So he comes to them and he says, oh, you know, Nabi Allah Nuh, Prophet Nuh had done so much work. We should, you know, remember him somehow. We should remember him. And they all said, yeah, we should, because down there they're starting to forget. And then those of you who have lost parents or grandparents or great-grandparents, you know, your fathers or your mothers or your parents or your grandparents, they might tell you the story, oh, this was like this, your grandfather was like this, your grandmother was like this, your great-uncle was like that, and you try to remember. And then they'll take out, you know, our parents or uncles and aunts, they love doing this, right? When you go to family gatherings, what do they take out? They have these beautiful, mashallah, albums. You guys know what I'm talking about, eh? You do know, alhamdulillah. You're not that old, are you? The albums are there. You know, nowadays they show you the phones or this electronic, what are these? Electronic picture frames, where you press a button, the picture moves over there, you know. And even when I go to my mom's house for Eid or something, she still takes out the album. And remember this? Remember when you were 2 years old, Shafiq? And oh my God, please. I really don't want to see those. You know, I don't want to remember when I was 2. I still feel like I'm 2 sometimes. Anyway, so he was reminding them that, oh, remember Prophet Nuh. You know what we should do? We should try and remember him. See, in a good way. This is how Shaitan works. Please, pay attention carefully. Shaitan was telling them, you know, we should do something to remember. At that time, they didn't have photographs. They didn't have, you know, these pictorials and pictures. He said, let's make a statue of Prophet Nuh and remember him and say salam to him every day. Sounds like a good idea, doesn't it? You remember him, you can visualize him, because one of the most difficult things, you know, people often say, that, yeah, it's good to hear a majlis, it's good to hear a lecture, it's good to do a zadari, but we have a hard time, Shaykh, to visualize what happened in Karbala, because we want visualizations now. We're living in an era where our attention span is very limited. I am, mashallah, pleasantly shocked and impressed that you listened to me for about 45 minutes to an hour without dozing off, because, you know, TV shows, cartoons, any of these movies that you watch, one of the things that Hollywood and Bollywood and all the other woods that are doing is they know your psychology and my psychology. And they know your attention span is very, very limited. And they try and make changes. They show colors, they show brightness, and they show this, and they make sure that your attention is there for the whole 3-hour or 2-hour movie. Unfortunately, when we go on the mimbar, we can't change our colors and we can't change, you know, we can't do any entertaining things here. We're just trying to convey a message of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. One salawat upon Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. Let's make a statue so we can visualize Nabi Allah Nuh. Everybody thought it was a good idea. They made the statue. Now another generation comes. So you're talking about 10, 20, 30 years. Shaitan doesn't want to, you know, convert you immediately. He doesn't want to make you a kafir immediately. He goes step by step. Very peacefully, very cautiously, very slowly, very gradually. And then the third generation, who was now remembering and saying salam or greeting that statue of Prophet Nuh, then eventually he says, well, you know, Prophet Nuh alayhi salam had done this. Imagine he was God. And you see, the job is done. You create shirk again. That's why in Prophet Ibrahim's time, what evil, you know, deadly idols that they had, deadly spiritually. And so this is the problem. This is how Shaitan works. And what happens with us as believers is we get frustrated very easily. Things don't go our way. things don't happen the way we want to, our committees know, are planning something and it doesn't work out the way, okay, forget it, I don't want to do this. To heck with all that. No, we have to persevere. We have to be patient. Things will happen gradually, not overnight. And this is why, inshallah, when we talk about Imam Sahib al-Amr, when the zuhur will take place and when the whole world will be in a state of utopia, it's not something that's going to happen in a minute or in a day or in a week. It might take 7 years, it might take 70 years, according to the riwayah that we have. We have to learn to be patient and persevere. If we know something is haqq, something is the truth, stick by it. So Islam is the religion of rejection of idols and batil, of the falsehood. And if you see in the life of the Holy Prophet of Islam, a very interesting conversation had taken place. When the Prophet started his message, when the message of La ilaha illallah tuflihu started, some of the kuffar, the opposition didn't start immediately. It was also a gradual opposition. They came to the Prophet, they brought a delegation to the Holy Prophet of Islam. And they said that, look, O Muhammad. They didn't say Rasulullah or anything. They said, look, O Muhammad, you're the yatim, you're the orphan of Abdullah. You are talking about this Allah. They actually didn't have a problem with Allah. The kuffar of Quraysh, of Makkah, didn't have a problem with Allah. They had a different problem. The problem was, they actually offered the Prophet something. They offered the Prophet that in Makkah, we already have 360 idols anyways. You put your Allah there as well, we'll make it 361. You're happy, we're happy, everybody's happy. Right? And it sounds good because when you talk about mediation and negotiation, and you talk about in modern in the union setups that we have, and if you look at what mediation and arbitration is all about, well, if you are working at a job and you're getting $15 an hour and you want $20 an hour, a mediator says, okay, we'll do $17.50. He has to give in, you have to give in, and we come to a compromise. So they tried to have this psychology. They said, oh Muhammad, we have no problem with your Allah. Put it at 360, we'll make it 361. You're happy, we're happy, everybody's happy. And then the ayat of the Quran came, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Qul ya ayyuhal kafirun, la a'budu ma ta'budun, wa la antum a'biduna ma a'bud, wa la ana a'budu ma a'badtum, wa la antum a'biduna ma a'bud, lakum dinukum waliyadi. Islam ordered them to reject, the Prophet to reject what they were offering, because when it comes to the principles of Islam, when it comes to the foundation of Islam, when it comes to the base of Islam and the belief in the unity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there can be no compromise or negotiation. Allah is Allah, Allah is one, and that is the be all and end all. This type of compromise, Islam, people have often felt, Islam doesn't believe in peace treaties. Do you think we can have negotiations? Can we sign treaties with the kuffar, with the enemies? Yes, of course. But when it comes to compromising those principles, no. But when it comes to world politics and the political arena, yes. The Prophet signed the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, didn't he? Imam Hassan signed the treaty with Muawiyah, alayhi la'an. Amirul Mu'mineen basically sacrificed the Khilafah for the protection of the Ummah. So Islam is not against having a treaty or peace. Islam is reminding us that the foundations cannot be compromised. And this is why the opposition to the Holy Prophet started. The Allah part was not the problem. The La ilaha was the problem. Do you understand? It's a philosophical point I'm trying to make, inshallah. The La ilaha was a problem, not the Allah. Allahu Akbar. And so this is where the boycott started. Even if you look today, Muslims are not allowed to hurt anybody innocent. Muslims are not allowed to oppress anybody. Muslims are not allowed to engage in any sort of chemical warfare, nuclear warfare. We've been very clear. The Rahbar has been very clear. For us to have weapons of mass destruction or nuclear weapons is haram for us. Everybody knows that. Muslims will not engage in such warfare. We will do normal, what is known as the proper warfare. We will not go into these kinds of things that the other world powers have done. Then why are you still afraid of us? The answer is in history. The Prophet's message, did the Prophet ever harm anybody? In fact, when the Prophet was announcing his message, Allahu Akbar, when the Prophet announced his message, when he called at Dhul Ashira, those elders, those Abus who were there, and he talked to them, he didn't come right out and say, I'm the Prophet of Allah, believe in Allah, or you're going to all go to Jahannam. No, he didn't start like that. Did it? No. He called them. What did he ask them? He had a meeting with them. He fed them. And then he asked them 2 questions. Profound questions. He's standing before everybody else who's older than him. Okay, so he was like the kid on the block, you can say. Okay, he was only 40. So he was the youngest one there. Almost. Except for Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Allahu Akbar. And he was the youngest one there, so but he's asking them a question. Now remember, he's 40 years old. He's asking them a question. All of them, most of them are elder than him. Some of them are his uncles, some are his great uncles, grand uncles, whatever you have, but you've got mostly elders. Now he's telling them that if I was to tell you that there is an army behind Mount Abu Qubais, would you believe me? This is an army, Ya Muhammad. Yes, we will believe you. Then the Prophet asked him the second question. He says, if I told you that army was ready to attack, would you believe me? They said, no, Ya Muhammad. The conversation then went on to, why would you believe me? And in unison they replied, because, oh Muhammad, we have never heard you utter a lie in your life. Allah. Can anybody claim that? Can I claim and say that in 40 years of my life, I have never told a lie? Can anybody claim that sitting here? Of course not. Okay, so the trust was there. So it was not that they were looking at somebody who just came from nowhere and now is claiming to be a prophet. They saw him as with his etiquettes. They saw his ethics and morals and his values. They saw his trustworthiness and his truthfulness. Even before the advent of Islam, he was known as as-Sadiq and al-Amin, the truthful and the trustworthy. Allahumma salli. Jazakallah khair. Jazakallah khair. May Allah bless you. May Allah bless you, inshallah, for your salawats. They knew him as an honest person. People often come to me, youngsters and youths, and they say, you know, Shaykh, it's really tough out there. We can't be honest all the time. We can't be trustworthy all the time. There's peer pressure, Shaykh. You don't understand this. I was in school. I understand peer pressure. I've been bullied. I understand bullying better than many would. Not everybody. Just saying I had my own experiences. So when you see the life of the Holy Prophet and the life of Ali ibn Abi Talib, you understand that the whole society was going in that direction towards kufr, untrustworthiness, lying and being fraudulent and being cheaters. And you see Ali and the Holy Prophet on the other side, as-Sadiq al-Amin. You realize peer pressure is something that we need to have our strength, our aqidah, our belief, and our actions to overcome. And make sure even if the whole society is going in another direction, that is not the direction of haqq. We must go in the direction towards truth and towards Muhammad and Ali Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam. We need to be different. We need to stand out in the crowd. We need to make sure that our identity is seen and acknowledged by those who are not believing in the message so that they will understand. That is why Imam Musa ibn Ja'far alayhi salatu wasalam says, do you want to know what the sign of our Shia is? Do you want to know what the sign of our Shia is? What a true Shia is like? If there's a community of 100,000 people, our Shia will be the one who is the most honest out of that group. Our Shia will be the one who is the most trustworthy of that group. Our Shia will be the one who is the most brave of that group. Allahu Akbar. It's very easy to say, Ashhadu anna Aliyun waliyullah. But to be a believer of Ashhadu anna Aliyun waliyullah is a whole different ballgame. The kuffar didn't have the problem with Allah. They had the problem with the La ilaha. They didn't want to reject these falsehoods. They didn't, because they knew that if they accept Allah, all of this goes down the tube. All of this goes down, all of our greed, all of this that we have built up, all of this that we have stolen and we have usurped, all of that goes down the tubes. That was where the problem is. That's why the sanctions started. That's why the boycott started. That's why it started at that time. It continues till today, and it will go on till the end of time, till the return of the Imam. They will continue to use these elements. Another group comes to Abu Talib alayhi salam. They come to Hazrat Abu Talib, and they say, Abu Talib, tell your nephew to stop this La ilaha illallah business. Tell him to stop this. We don't want it. We can't have this. If he wants power, we will make him the king of Arabia. He wants power, we'll make him the king of Arabia. If he wants women, we'll marry him to the most beautiful woman and women in the whole Arabian Peninsula. If he wants wealth, we will make him so rich, he will not even know what to do with it. Whatever he wants, we'll give it to him. He wants power, he wants wives, he wants money, we'll give it to him. Just tell him to stop this. What an offer, huh? What an offer. Allahu Akbar. I can be the king of Arabia. And sometimes I've had mu'mineen say and think, well, if I would accept this. I'll become the king of Arabia and then I'll make everybody Muslim. We try. Somebody sent me a little clip. He says, oh Allah, oh God, please let me win the lottery and I'll prove I won't be a bad person. Huh? Right. Okay. Absolute power. What did they say? Absolute power corrupts absolutely? Something like that, yeah? Anyways, the Prophet replied to Abu Talib alayhi salam. He told Abu Talib, he said, please tell the kuffar, that even if they were to put the sun in one hand and the moon in the other hand, even then I will not stop from saying La ilaha illallah. And how beautiful Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loved this aqidah, loved this faith, this statement of faith. That when the Prophet pointed to the sun that had already gone down towards Maghrib, the sun came back to its median to the time of Dhuhr, that Allah ta'ala has given the Prophet the power over the sun. When he pointed to the moon, when the kuffar were doubting his nabuwwat, the moon split in half. One part was on one side of the mountain, the other part was on this side of the mountain. That, oh Muhammad, we have given you the sun in one hand and the moon in the other hand, oh Muhammad. Even then we will not desist. That is the whole reason why the message of Islam shakes kingdoms. It shakes tyrannies and dictatorships. The true message of Islam, the message of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad that is followed genuinely, can overthrow governments, can overthrow powers and superpowers. And that is what they're afraid of. That is why you see them opposing Islam. You see them opposing the countries that have followed the line of Ali Muhammad. You see them opposing them because they have seen that when a country or entity goes towards the path of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad, they can become a force that is to be reckoned with. They are a force, because don't think Malik Ashtar, Habib ibn Madahir, Kumail and Kambar were only in that era. We have, alhamdulillah, our own Malik Ashtars and Kambars and Kumails and Habib ibn Madahirs today. Don't think that that is only in history that you read about it. And you look at the people that the West fears. There was a hadith that the authenticity I've just not been able to verify. So but I will share it with you because it was something that made sense. That Mullah has been quoted as saying, Amirul Mu'mineen. Again, I've not been able to find the reference, so that's why I'm always cautious. So I'm saying that ahead of time. But the Mullah has says that if you want to see which direction the haqq is in, see which direction the arrows are going. See which direction the arrows are going. If we use today's terminology, see which direction the nuclear weapons are being pointed at. One salawat upon Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. See where the concentration is. See who wants to put sanctions and boycotts and economic embargoes and this and that, and you want to isolate this person and suffocate that country. See what they're doing and see why. It is La ilah that they're afraid of. Otherwise, what do we have? As an ummah, does a single Shia country have a nuclear weapon? Does a single Shia country have any major weapons of mass destruction? Do we have anything? Why are you afraid then? Why are you afraid? It is because they have realized, the way that Fir'aun realized that what Musa is, they have realized that the true power lies inside, not in what you have in your possessions. And that is where the strength is. And that is what Shaytan is most afraid of. And that is why La ilah is more deadly. The rejection of falsehood is more deadly than the acceptance of truth. Everybody will accept the truth. If the Prophet would have just said, I mentioned as a humorous point yesterday, Allahu Ahad should have been the kalama. Qul huwallahu ahad. It's from the Quran. Why La ilaha? There is no God but Allah. There is no God. It makes it more difficult to explain. Qul huwallahu ahad. Allah is one. Muhammad Rasulullah. Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. Everything is simple. The problem or the issue is that everybody can believe in Allah, God. And I'll prove this, inshallah. As I said, I sit on, as I've told you a couple of times, I sit on an interfaith community gathering that we meet every month. The one Thursday in the month we meet. And in this interfaith, We sit with polytheists, we sit with atheists, we sit with naturists, we sit with all kinds of people. And all kinds of people are sitting at the table. And I found very interestingly that even those who are atheists, they believe in either Mother Nature, the supreme power, or they believe in nature, Mother Nature, they believe in Jehovah, they believe in something or another. Whether it is the Aboriginals, the indigenous people, whether it is, an atheist who has, a paganistic foundation. We are sitting with neo-pagans, we are sitting with, Wiccans, and we are sitting with things that I had never heard of in my entire life. And I saw that the common denominator was that every one of them believes in something higher or more supreme than themselves. Some people just have an allergy to saying God. But they all believe. It is something that is very deep inside. Imam Jafar ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, was having a debate with an atheist. And the atheist, there's no God, there's no Jahannam, Jannah, there's no Akhirah, there's no God. That was the whole foundation. Imam Jafar al-Sadiq looks at him and says, "You're a businessman, right?" The man says, "Yes, I'm a businessman." Many people are businessmen, no big deal. He says, "Do you remember one day you were traveling?" This atheist says, "Yes." He says, "You were going by ship to one of the other ports, from one port to the other port." The man was startled. He says, "Yeah, I've gone many times." He says, "Do you remember that one time there was a storm, a sea storm?" The man is now getting a bit perplexed. "Yes, I remember." "Do you remember your boat overturned?" The man is wondering how this Jafar ibn Muhammad sitting in Medina knows what was happening to me over there. He said, "Yes, my boat had capsized, turned over." He says, "Do you remember you were holding on to one of the planks, some of the planks?" He says, "Yes, I remember that." The man is just baffled, he is shocked. Imam tells him, at that moment, when you were ready to drown, you would have died, your life was flashing before you. At that moment, did you feel that something or someone will save you? The man replies, "Yes, I remember that." Imam says, "That was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your heart." So people have a belief in Allah. They know Allah is there. Allahu Akbar. Believe me, every human being knows that there is a power greater than themselves. But they just have an allergy. They just don't want to admit it. They just don't want to acknowledge it. Inside they know that. And I mentioned yesterday, the batil inside, they know, they recognize it. And so this is why believing in Allah is very easy. Believing in Allah is not difficult. But rejecting those false gods becomes very challenging. That is why the opposition to Islam is there. That is why the opposition to the Holy Prophet was there. Otherwise, if you look at the message of Islam, it's a message of peace, tranquility, a message of equality and unity, a message that is a very sublime message. I've often talked to even those who have been, writing or speaking against Islam. Some of the writers and some of those who've just had an animosity to Islam. The few occasions that I get to talk to them. One of them I was speaking, I said, "What is it that you have a problem in the message of Islam?" "Oh, Islam is this, it's abusive, Islam, terrorizes people." And then when we sit down and say, "Is this the message of Islam?" Or certain Muslims have done things. Islam was never spread by the sword. Islam was spread by its message of La ilaha illallah, the message of love and peace. Some Muslims used the sword to spread Islam. That's why I always differentiate between Muslim history and Islamic history. These are very different. Islam is different. Actions of Muslims sometimes are different. If we can differentiate that, then we understand. We've seen Muslims abuse their children, their spouses, their wives, this and that and the other. And I says, "Where are you getting this from?" "Oh, we saw it in the early history of Islam. This one did that, this one that did that." The second Khalifa, he actually became a Muslim when he was supposed to go and kill his sister, right? But he heard her reciting the Quran, and then he changed over. And they give examples like that. I said, why don't you give the examples of those who are the authentic successors of the Holy Prophet? How does Islam remind us and tell us to treat our families? How does Islam tell us? What does Islam inform us? And believe me, there are such beautiful examples that when I speak and I tell them, and if we all become ambassadors of Islam and we convey the message, the sublime message of Ali Muhammad to them, believe me, my sisters and my brothers, you will create a shaking in their own mindsets because they will understand what true Islam is. I'll give you an example. How many of you have heard recited or know about a very famous hadith that has been narrated by Jabir ibn Abdullah Ansari, known as Hadithul Jazakallah Khair. You know, in some of our Khoja and Pakistani communities, sadly, we use Hadith Qissa as a fill in the blank, the Shaikh is late. Okay, what do we do now? You know, there's paranoia, okay, Hadith Qissa. You know, the Maulana hasn't come yet, so okay, no, this becomes the fill in the gap. Especially this is notorious at weddings. Some of them actually, you know, write down, we'll have Yasin, Tilawat al-Quran Majid, we'll have Hadith Qissa and that. But many places I've gone to, it's like the fill in the gap, fill in the blank. That okay, we don't, you know, we've got a few minutes to kill, let's recite this. In actuality, there are certain things in this hadith that are so unique, so special, that I'm sure you know about it, you've heard it, and I mentioned yesterday, I'm not giving you anything new, we're just taking a look at perhaps a new perspective. That if you just give Hadith Qissa to somebody, that non-Muslim or that antagonist who may not have, or who may have an allergy to Islam, and if they have a genuine point and this point is answered, they might inshallah get a better outlook or better view. This is where Jabir narrates on the authority of none other than Siddiqat al-Tahira, Ummul Aima Fatimatu Zahra, salamullahi alayha. Whereas Hazrat Zahra herself is narrating this entire episode, what had happened. And I'm not going to go into a commentary, please. I don't have the time to do that. I don't have the time to go into, you read the translation yourself. I'm just going to come to about 4 points in that inshallah will help us understand better. The Lady of Light narrates that I was at home and the Prophet, my father came home. My father came home and was feeling a little ill. He says, Fatima, give me the chadar, give me the blanket of Yemen, the blanket that was from Yemen. I will just lie down in your room for a little while. Hazrat Zahra gets the blanket, the Prophet lies down, puts the blanket over him, and he is resting. A few minutes later, Hazrat Imam Hassan, now I'm saying Imam Hassan, but remember, he was like maybe 6 years old, 5 years old, whatever. He comes in, Assalamu alayki ya ummah. Oh, peace be upon you, oh my mother. And she replies, wa alayka salam, ya qurrat aini wa thamarat fuadi. Allahu Akbar. Peace be upon you, O apple of my eye, the sunshine of my life. I'm not using this in a literal translation. I'm using it in a figurative. You know, when in Farsi or in Gujarati or in Urdu, a lot of times we use terminologies to tell our children, you know, my jaan, my jigar, my kaleji. And in Farsi and Urdu and Gujarati, this means, you know, my liver, my intestine. And you know, when kids ask me, what does this mean? It means, oh, you're my liver, you're my heart, you're my intestines. And the kids go, oh my God, you're disgusting, Dad. Okay, so that's why I don't do a literal translation. Qurrat aini wa thamarat fuadi, you are the fruit of my life. Huh? It sounds a lot nicer than to say you are my intestines and my liver. Okay. And so she greeted him in this loving way. What does that tell us? What does that tell us? First of all, the child enters the home and he greets his parents. He greets his mother. He says salam. He says, peace be with you. You know, when people tell me that even in our Muslim community, one of my teachers was saying, he says that you Western children, I mean, he was generalizing, but he, a very dear teacher, a very knowledgeable teacher, he's a very learned scholar. He says that you Western children, Westerners, and he was even looking at me and sometimes my kids as well. He says, you only have 3 terms. He says, what's that? He says, when you enter, you say hi. When you leave, you say bye. And when someone tells you to do something, you say why. Hi, bye, and why? Salawatullah. What is this hi? When you come in, hi, what is this hi? You know, that is what I was taught hi is. And then when I came to Canada, they taught me that they say hi is when you have something that you're not supposed to have. Then you become, oh, okay, exactly. How do we meet and greet? Assalamu alaikum. Peace be with you. We're praying for each other when we meet. Whether it's our family, whether it's our friends, our colleagues, our community members, the mu'mineen of Ark, wherever, mu'mineen who come into Masjid of Imam Ali, many of the other masajid, Hussainiyas, we greet each other with Assalamu alayka, Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you. This is the base of Islam. Islam starts its gatherings, meetings and introductions with peace, not war. Assalamu alaikum. Ya ummah, wa thamarat, wa alayka assalam ya. Qurrat aini. beauty of my heart. And then what happens? A few minutes later, well, he says, I smell the fragrance of my grandfather. And like I said, I'm not translating. I'm going very, very quickly because I see the time is moving very quickly. And of course, Salat is coming earlier as well. So I will, inshallah, cut this as best as I can. He tells her that I smell the fragrance of my grandfather. She says, yes, he's in the room. And Hazrat Imam Hassan enters. He greets the Prophet. The Prophet invites him to come in as well after he's taken permission. Then a little while later, another knock comes. Imam Hussein enters. Assalamu alaikum ya ummah. Allahu Akbar. Peace be upon your mother. You know, the kids, the children don't stomp in. Mom, where's my Game Boy? Where's my PlayStation? Mom, where's my... none of that. Why is the internet not working today? What happened to the Wi-Fi? No. Assalamu alaikum ya ummah. My dear children, while Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein were 6 and 7 or whatever their young ages were, this applies all through our lives. How does Hazrat Zahra reply him? Wa alayka salam ya qurrataini wa thamaratu fuadi. Do you hear any distinction? Do you hear any difference? She treats them equally. This is one of the biggest challenges for parents. My dear sisters and brothers, I know there may be some parents in the audience today. Inshallah, some will become parents. May Allah, inshallah, give you children. Give you, inshallah, lots of it. We have to improve and increase our population, inshallah, bi'idhnillah, but correctly. Not just increase numbers. We don't want quantity, we want quality. Quality, inshallah. And so there's no distinction, there's no differentiation. You don't make one feel better than the other. You don't do this. This is something that Islam does not permit. One time Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein, they were 3-4 years old. They drew a little drawing and they come to their mother Fatima Zahra salamullahi alayha. Mommy, which drawing is the best? She says, they're both nice. Imam Hassan and Imam says, no mom, pick one of them, which is the best one? She says, they're both beautiful. They insist upon it. Okay, one of them you pick. Finally she says, okay, I will take a tasbih, musbah. I will break it, and those 99 beads, whoever gets more beads, their drawing is the best. She breaks her tasbih, and exactly, 49 and 49 are going. The last bead is coming down. It can go to either side. What happens? Jibreel Amin comes down with an order from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He splits that last bead in half. One goes to Hassan and Mujtaba, one goes to Hussein, Shaheed bi Karbala. No favoritisms, no distinctions, differentiations. You don't create the feeling of hatred of one towards the other. You don't make one feel better or inferior to the other. And when one time somebody came to the Holy Prophet, and at the house of a lady came with her 2 children, and she wanted to speak to Janabi Aisha. And the Prophet is sitting in a room next door. He's listening, watching what's happening. And as she finishes the conversation, this lady with Janabi Aisha, she has a candy, she splits it because the kids are, causing distraction, they're interrupting and what have you. She gives half to one child, half to the other, and she leaves. When she leaves, the Prophet tells her that that lady was from amongst the people of Jannah, from Ahlul Jannah. So Aisha says, Ya Rasulullah, you only just heard her for a few minutes. How could you put her in Jannah? And he replies, he says, somebody who has got the policy of justice, of adala, like this, that she made sure each of her children got half the candy and made sure each of them did not feel that he had more, he had more. That person will be from the people of Jannah. Allahumma salli. People of paradise, Allahu Akbar. The Prophet says, because you're keeping fairness. It starts at home. We're talking about, being fair in the community and in the kingdoms and in the provinces and the countries. Let's start from home first. Allahu Akbar. The jihad starts at home. The akhlaq starts in the houses. It doesn't start in the masjids, the Husainiyas. It doesn't start in the provinces and the cities and in the countries and the mulks. No, it starts at home. How do you behave at home will determine who you are and what you are. And this is where our because when we talk about children's rights and parents' rights, this is a whole subject in itself. But I just wanted to, like I said, talk about a little bit of family life. And then what happens after Imam Hussein says, I smell the fragrance of my grandfather Rasulullah, Hazrat Zahra tells him that yes, your brother and the Holy Prophet are in the room. He goes in there, he also lays down with the Prophet under the blanket of Yaman. Then what happens? La ilaha illallah. Then Amirul Mu'mineen comes. Allahu Akbar. Please, even if you've not paid attention to the hadith in the past, next time you hear the hadith, because this is the hadith, this is the narration for which at the end, the Prophet and Imam Ali have said that whoever recites this hadith, whichever mahfil this hadith is recited, whichever gathering this hadith is recited, the angels, the malaika are told that do not let even one person leave that mahfil, leave that gathering until their du'as have been accepted, until their hajat have been accepted, and their sins have been forgiven. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Muhammad. Imam enters. Assalamu alayki ya binti Rasulullah. Imagine for a moment. I'm going to talk to this side of the room for a moment, okay? We're men. We come home. When I come home, I've had a hard day. I'm grumpy. I'm cranky. I walk in the door. What's for dinner? And what do you want for dinner? Is the reply usually I get. As if it's in my hands. You know, sometimes we wonder that why do things happen the way they do? Well, if I'm going to stomp in the house like a gorilla, then I'm wondering why is there a tigress on the other side? If I'm going to, go in like that because I've had a hard day, what does Imam Ali do? Can I say that my day was harder than Imam Ali, who was working on the farm in the hot, burning, scorching heat of the Arabian desert? And I can say that my day was harder than my Mawla Ali ibn Abi Talib? Huh? Who do I think I am? Imam Ali leaves his baggage outside. Huh? He leaves that baggage outside. He comes in with a beautiful greeting. Assalamu alayki ya binti Rasul. He doesn't come in and say, Fatima, what's happening? What's going on? What did you do all day today? First the greeting. Assalamu alayki. And how respectfully, O daughter of the Prophet. So he remembers the Prophet, he remembers Fatima alayhi salam, and what reply does he get? Wa alayka salam, ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, ya Abul Hasan, ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. She doesn't even say alaykum salam Ali. You see, we want respect, but we don't like to give respect. This is a problem we have in this world. Everybody wants to get respect. I want to be loved. I want to be respected. I want everyone to come and say salam to me. I want everyone to, greet me nicely and to, shine my shoes and wash my feet. But when it comes to respect, I don't want to give respect. And that's a problem we have, sisters and brothers. And if you looked at the life of Imam Ali and the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, you see in this hadith how exemplary it is. Because this is how their life was. It's not just one time happening. This was their life in and out, day in, day out. And this is the example we need to take with us in our day-to-day lives. These are not just examples for us to hear and listen to when there's a wedding, when there's a wafat, a wiladat, when there's a Thursday night or a Saturday program. This is something, the message of Ahlul Bayt is something we need to take in our lives and apply them in our lives, not just read them and narrate them to each other. Apply them. How beautifully, Ayatollah Marhum, he just passed away before the month of Ramadan al-Sharif. Ayatollah Ibrahim Amini, beautiful book he wrote, Principles of Marriage and Family Ethics. In this book, he talks about, and I actually encourage not only those who are getting married to read it, those who are married, just to renew the love and the commitment. Just to renew and remind yourself. In the first half, he talks to the lady. It's almost like a conversation he's having. He's talking to her. He's telling her that, be understanding, be kind, be gentle. He's probably had a hard day. He's probably done this. He's probably, and he's talking in a very polite manner. And then in the other half, the second half, he's then talking to us. He says, don't think that just because she was home all day, she was sitting and watching dramas and movies, or just because she was home, there's thousands of things to do in the house. It's a very beautiful colloquial discussion he's having that, believe me, it can change lives. And this is how Imam Ali alayhi salam enters, how Hazrat Fatima Zahra replies, how Imam was known to help throughout the house, how the Imam was known to, despite his day schedule, he was also known to be participating in the household chores and household responsibilities. And so Hazrat Zahra then responds with being just as gentle and just as caring. And so when we look at that, we can see that if we were to really apply that, the problems in our community would be cut by 80%, because a lot of times what happens in most of the marriages and problems and situations and in family circumstances that I've had to mediate and I've had to do arbitration in, the problem is he doesn't respect me, he doesn't appreciate me, he doesn't care about what I do. Well, she's being disrespectful, she's being like this, she's being that, she's lazy. Well, something, perhaps we need to, they say that don't look for the perfect partner, try to be the perfect partner. For those of you who are not yet married, these are things, inshallah, you can take with you. Those of you who are married, let's try and change. If we need to change, inshallah, bi'idhnillah, we can make ourselves better. We all need to. And you see that conversation guides us. You know, when and all the responsibilities, parental responsibilities, children, because you know, when this pandemic started, a lot of people said, okay, people are at home now. Abuses have gone up in North America and Europe. Even sadly, in our own communities, people are home now. People are having more confrontations, challenges. And what happens is we forget our Islamic etiquettes and morals and values and foundations. This is also an imtihan. This is also a test. Remember that. Tests for people are in different shapes and forms. Everybody's tests will be different. And what we have to remember is, whether it is our spouse, either the husband or the wife, whether it is our children, whether it is our parents, whether it is our grandparents, these are all amanat from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we are accountable. Inna as-sama' wal basara wal fu'ada kullu ulaika kana anhu mas'ula. Our sight, our vision, our hearing, just like the body is an amanat from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those around us are also an amanat from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for which we are accountable. For which we are accountable and answerable. And if I have done the wrong thing and I've been abusive or mean or angry for no reason, then punishable as well by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm going to leave it at that. As I said, I've taken a significant amount of your time. May Allah bless you, inshallah, for listening so patiently and attentively. And may Allah give you a great ajr, inshallah, for this. Because the family is the foundation. When the family is firm and the family is rooted in the tenets of Islam, then the society advances towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala much better. And that is why even on the plains of Karbala, you see nobody hesitating from Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, even the family members, especially the family members who were there side by side with the Imam. That when the time came for the sacrifice to be given, the family members rushed to the Imam to give their lives. But the companions who were there would not allow it. Allahu Akbar. My salams, this is why we say Assalamu ala al-Hussein wa ala Ali ibn al-Hussein wa ala awlad al-Hussein wa ala ashab al-Hussein. The companions would not allow a single family member of Abu Abdullah to go on the battlefield without them sacrificing their lives. And then we see that Hazrat Zainab with her own and Muhammad and the others came forward as well. وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مِنْقَلَبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept our deeds, our amal, inshallah, our ibadat, our azadari for Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. We ask Allah ta'ala to forgive our sins, to give us the tawfiq to act on the teachings of the Quran and Majid and the Ahlul Bayt. We ask Allah to cure all those who are ill from their illnesses, Ya Allah. We ask you to protect our maraja, our ulama, the rahbar, the waliya faqih, those who are serving while the Imam is in occultation, to grant them long and healthy life in the service of Islam and the Ahlul Bayt. Ya Allah, we beg you to return our Mawla Imam al-Hujjah. Make us amongst the ashab and the ansar of the Imam. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم. One Fatiha followed by a salawat, please. Preceded by a salawat.
Tonight is the night of the companions of Abu Abdullah al-Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Inshallah, I'm going to start with the maqtal. I'm just going to recite the beginning and I'm going to talk about Zubayr ibn al-Qaym, one of the companions, and then end it with the aza, inshallah. Umar ibn Sa'd advanced towards al-Hussein, his troops, and shot an arrow, saying, so he's the one who began, and shot an arrow, saying, testify for me with the governor that I shot the first arrow. Others followed suit, hardly any of al-Hussein alayhi salam's men escaped being shot at. The Imam alayhi salam said to his companions, رحمكم الله إلى الموت الذي لا بد منه فإن هذه السهام رسل القوم إليكم. Stand, may Allah be merciful unto you and meet the imminent death, for these arrows are messengers of these people to you. He and his companions charged towards. He as his companions charged together and fought for a while. By the time the cloud of dust dissipated, 50 men had been killed. One of the companions of Abi Abdullah al-Imam al-Hussein, Abu Thumam al-Sa'idi, looked at the sun and saw that it was already afternoon. So he said to Al-Hussein alayhi salam, may I be sacrificed for your sake? I can see that these folks have advanced towards you. No, by Allah, you shall not be killed before I die defending you. And I love to return to Allah after having performed the prayer whose time has approached. Al-Hussein alayhi salam raised his head to the heavens and said, you have remembered the prayer. May Allah count you among those who upholds the prayer and who remember him often. Yes, this is the beginning of its time. Ask them to leave us alone so that we may perform the prayer. After that, Umar ibn Sa'd dispatched Amir ibn Sa'd in charge of the company of archers to shoot arrows at Al-Hussein alayhi salam, his companions, to hamstring their horses. Not a single horseman remained with Al-Hussein alayhi salam except Dahik ibn Abdullah al-Mashriqi, who recounted this report, having seen how the horses of our fellows were being hamstrung. I came with my horse and I entered a tent belonging to our fellows. They fought most furiously. However, whoever wanted to come out to fight would bid Al-Hussein alayhi salam his farewell and say, peace be upon you, O son of the Messenger of Allah. Al-Hussein alayhi salam would then respond to him by saying, and upon you to be peace, and we shall soon join your company. Then he would quote the Quranic verse saying, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So of them is he who accomplished his vow, and of them is he who yet waits, and they have not changed in the least. A brave companion of Abi Abdullah al-Hussein, his name is Zubayr ibn al-Qayn, who put his hand at Al-Hussein's shoulder and sought permission to fight with these verses. Advance, advance, may you guide, O guided one. For today shall I, your grandfather, and the Prophet meet, and I shall meet Al-Hassan and Ali, the pleased one, the Lion of Allah, the living martyr. Zuhair, I am the son of Al-Qayn. With the sword do I defend Hussein. With the sword do I defend Hussein. He killed 120 men. 2 of the enemies jointly attacked him and killed him. It was then that Al-Hussein alayhi salam stood up and said, May Allah never keep you distant from us, O Zuhair. And may he condemn those who killed you, as he had condemned those whom he turned into pigs and appeased. آي 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 صعد الله قلبك سيدي يا أبا عبد الله. All the companions left Al-Hussein alayhi salam alone on the battlefield with his family. ظل يناديهم يا فرساني تخلوني وحيد، ليش عفتوا مخيمكم ونمتوا على الصعيد؟ لا ولد لي يبقى يحمي حريمي ولا عضيد، وابن سعد بعدي يسير هالحراير نيته. صاح يا هلال ويا مسلم ويا زهير ويا حبيب، نصرتي كلكم نسيتوها وتركتوني غريب. ما تجون الهاليتامى، ما تجون الهاليتامى ذوبوني من النحيب، ظلت جثثهم تموج وتضطرب من نخوته. جفوف جفوف القدر يا اصحابي، لونكم لونكم احشمكم وروحي تون، لونكم لونكم تنهضون وتشوفوني، لونكم وحيد وحاطط العدوان بيه، وحيد وحاطط العدوان بيه. الحزن يا اهل الوفا علي، تراكم تراكم حين على الثرى نمتوا، تراكم تراكم شلون اصبر وعيوني، تراكم جتل كلكم يا فرسان الحمية، جتل كلكم يا فرسان الحمية. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون، والعاقبة للمتقين. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أفلح من أعادها ثانية. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أحسنت. طيب الله أنفاسك. Dear Shaikh, thank you so much for this beneficial lecture. Brother Hadi, أجرك الله. Inshallah. Just a quick reminder. Inshallah, we will still have the lectures and till Saturday night, inshallah. So Saturday will be the night of the Ashir. The Ashir will be on Sunday. We will not have a lecture on Sunday, but inshallah, the night of the Ashir, we will have the Maqtal of Imam Hussein. So every day, Brother Hadi will be reading a paragraph of the Maqtal till we arrive on the night of the Ashir on Saturday to do the full Maqtal, inshallah. So inshallah, Allah yatabbal a'malkum inshallah. Now please help me welcome Brother Abu Zahra with a loud salawat.
The reappearance of Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman and for the wellness of Shaykh Shafiq Hudda, sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. جودي عيني بالدموع والدماء قام جبرائيل ينعي بالسماء وحسينا 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 صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. جود عيني بالدموع والدماء قام جبرائيل ينعي بالسماء وحسينا 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 جود عيني بالدموع والدماء قام جبرائيل ينعي بالسماء وحسينا 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 جود عيني بالدموع والدماء قام جبرائيل ينعي بالسماء وحسينا وحسينا دمعة العين ذرفيا مقلتيا واندبي ذاك الشهيد الهاشمية دمعة العين ذرفيا مقلتيا واندبي ذاك الشهيد الهاشمية واس زينب وسكينة ورقيا وحسينا وحسينا جود عيني بالدموع والدماء قام جبرائيل ينعي بالسماء وحسينا 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 قلبي لسكينا ما دهاها ويح قلبي لسكينا ما دهاها قد روت أرض الطفوف من بكاها تهتف أين أبيها ونداها وحسينا 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 ويح قلبي لسكينا ما دهاها ويح قلبي لسكينا ما دهاها قد روت أرض الطفوف من بكاها تهتف أين أبيها ونداها وحسينا وحسينا جود عيني بالدموع والدماء قام جبرائيل ينعي بالسماء وحسينا 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 يا لنور البدر غابا في أفولي وضحى ذاب اكتئابا للبتول يا لنور البدر غابا في أفولي وضحى ذاب اكتئابا للبتول نالها سهم الرزايا والمنون وحسينا 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 جود عيني بالدموع والدماء قام جبرائيل ينعي في السماء وحسينا وحسينا لهف قلبي لمصاب حل فينا لهف قلبي لمصاب حل فينا يوقد في القلب نارا وحنينا ذكر روح الله تبقى ما حيينا ذكر روح الله تبقى ما حيينا وحسينا 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 جود عيني بالدموع والبكاء قام جبرائيل ينعي
بالسماء وحسينا وحسينا وحسينا
لهف قلبي لمصاب حل فينا لهف قلبي لمصاب حل فينا يوقد في القلب نارا وحنينا ذكر روح الله يبقى ما حيينا وحسينا 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 جود عيني بالدموع قام جبرائيل ينعي بالسماء
وحسينا وحسينا وحسينا
وحسينا وحسينا وحسينا صلوا على محمد وآل محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
دعاء الحجة جميعا إن شاء الله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين وصل اللهم على محمد وآله الطاهرين أحسن الله إليكم بدك شيء تقول أحسن الله إليكم شيخنا العزيز